So what we'd like to demonstrate here is lashing a patient into the basket. This is not necessarily a operation skill, so generally you guys are going to see the rescue team here. If there's a Stokes, you'll see that we've got a pre-done up harness which we carry on the TR, but it may very well be that we can use some help just hands-on lashing the patient. And so I just want to go over how we do that, and Alan's going to give me a hand as we do that. So we're going to do an internal and an external lashing. The internal lashing, the idea is that it is going to keep the person literally in the basket so that they cannot come out either end, and they couldn't, if you flipped it over, they wouldn't actually come out. So that is the one that is going to keep them in the basket so that they are secure in that sense. The external is just going to give them a little bit more support so that as the basket rotates, as we're moving it around, they're less likely to move around inside the basket. So it just gives, it's not as big of a safety lashing as the internal lashing, but it's definitely will be helpful for the patient in not moving around. So we're going to use the yellow webbing, the 12 footers, and what we want to do is find the center of the webbing, come back up and find, put a bite in here. We're just going to put a girth hitch around our harness, and Alan is going to take one end and I'm going to take the other. And we're going to go around one of these uprights. And we'll start up high, and we're going to do a round turn in 3/2 inches. It's kind of nice if you can just get the twists out of the webbing so that the flat part of the webbing lays against the patient. And also, as you're doing this, the tendency sometimes is to flip that, and the ends of these can be a little bit sharp, so try not to flip that into the patient's face. And so we're going to do a round turn, and then just 2 half hitches. This doesn't have to be particularly tight. We'll take up some of that slack when we do the bottom one. So the bottom one's going to be the same thing. We're going to find the center of that webbing, come back from here, maybe just get the twists out of that. We're going to take the bite, we're going to pass it through the buckle and also just incorporate the other webbing so it interlocks in there. We'll give Alan one of those. We're going to come back down to the bottom, again, kind of make that flat. And now you can put a little bit more tension on that thing as you do the round turn. And then a couple of half hitches. And then these can just get stuffed down inside the basket so that they don't fall out. So you can see from this that were we to tip the basket up either direction, this is going to keep the patient from coming out the ends of the basket. So that's the one that really keeps them in. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to take a long orange webbing, and these are 30s, and we'll find the middle of this, which is generally marked. You'll see a little black mark on that. I'm going to give Alan one end of that. And we're going to put the black mark basically right between their legs, and then it can just come straight through. Pull all the slack out of that. Again, we'll put that about like so. One thing we want to remember as we do the lashing, just don't lash over the top rail if we're in rocks or something, or concrete. We don't want to scrape this webbing. It's pretty thin and it can cut relatively easily. So just don't wrap around that top rail. So now we're just going to pass that through, and I'm going to pass that across to Alan. He's going to pass his to me. And we're just going to pass back and forth, alternating. And the one thing we don't want to do is cross over the patient's neck or face. So once we get to this point, to use up some of the webbing, I can pass this straight across. Alan can go ahead and just tie that off with a round turn and 2 half hitches. Once he gets that secure, then what I can do is start working my way back and tighten this up a little bit. Get the bulk of the slack out of that. And then I can go ahead and finish mine also. Same thing with a round turn and 2 half hitches. And we'll tuck that end underneath so that it doesn't come out. And so there we have the internal lashing and an external lashing, and you can see how the external, while that patient could come out either end if we tipped it up like this, that's what the internal keeps it. The external is just going to keep that patient attached to the basket a little more, so that as we jostle them, that they're going to be more stable in the basket.